See, it should go live now. There we go. Hey, okay, so I think this might be working because I didn't have to press anything to quit. But we're on a different stream and we're here for everybody. It's Meeple Syrup. So how's everybody doing?
Doing okay. Yeah. Oh, and yes,
Good.
we are confirmed on YouTube as
Okay,
well.
cool. So
All right.
hopefully some people will pick it up and not wonder where we are. And I guess while we're chatting, we can go and tell everybody that things are up and running now.
Yes.
I mean, they should be able to see it because it's on live now, but
Hmm.
it may not be the thing that they were like. Some people
Waiting
wait
in
for the
front of.
right that particular thing. There's two people checking there. Okay.
Yay.
Hey, at least a couple people are coming on, and hopefully more will come on as they get along. Welcome, 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 Meeps. It is the Meeple Syrup Show. It is April 30th, 2025, and it is kind of not the greatest timeline, but we're here, and we're going to talk about a couple things today. George and Kat, it's been 2 weeks since we've seen you. Where have you been?
We
We've
have
been
been.
at the, excuse me, the gathering of friends. George,
Yes. Yes.
George, this
it's
was your first
been,
time there.
It was. Yes.
And Kat, this is your second time?
yes.
Hmm.
Yes. And then I actually didn't go this year, which is rare. But with travel being as it is,
Understandable.
it's not it's only like a hop, skip, and a jump. Like I can literally see the hotel from the Canadian side of the border. But I wasn't really willing to risk it, and I was sillily busy with school and all that kind of stuff. So it's an interesting conundrum when the government in Canada is cracking down on immigration, and yet we're opening like tons and tons of seats for students, and a lot of our students are international students. So I had this last term. I was wondering, why am I so beat by all this teaching? I wasn't teaching more classes. I was just teaching more students.
Um,
And if you're a teacher or a professor, and like, hey, it takes me about 2 hours to mark 40 students assignments, which is roughly average for an assignment. And then you realize, like, oh, I don't have 80 students now, I have 120. So every week I was doing 12 hours of grading
oh
because
Lord.
I have no more than that. I was doing 14 hours of grading because I have seven. I teach seven classes, so that's what you get when you don't do research. By the way, when you're not a research professor and you're a teaching professor, you get a lot of students. So it is my own fault. Maybe I'll do research next year. I don't know. Anyway, so I was not at the gathering, but it was your first time. Tell us about your first time, George. Oh, we should probably explain what the gathering of friends is a little bit before we
Sure.
get into your experience. Sorry. So go ahead. What was it?
Oh.
What is it?
So, I mean, again, I've only been there once. But the Gathering of Friends is not a convention. I think that's where I would start. It is very much what it says on the tin. Um, it is a group of people, and even though I had never been there before, I did very much feel like I don't know if I was friends with everyone, but certainly I was welcomed as someone who was within the group of friends or at this gathering. And it
Yeah.
is a 24-hour a day, or as near as well, some days. Literally, the room never got locked, as Kat can attest. Um, Opportunity to meet with people from all aspects of the industry, and I do mean that. I mean, there were people from designers to streamers to publishers to people who I think, as far as I can tell, because it's now it's 35 years, so from all age groups, and I mean there are a whole strata of people that I have no idea why, but I assume that they were probably Alan's friends
Yeah.
from the very beginning, and they are just that's how
They're
you
just gamers.
and
And
they're
that's the thing.
and
It's not all industry people, right? It's about
mm,
50-50. It's about 50% of people who are industry or industry adjacent, and then another 50% of people who are just people who like playing games.
and I have to say those some of my best experiences were people who were just love playing games, and certainly at least the ones I met also love teaching games and tend to be very good at it as well. So
Yes.
I played a number of games. I'll get to you later that I probably wouldn't have approached on my own, but they were able to to condense a dense rule book into something that Doesn't mean I did well in the first game, but I understood what I was doing. And it's yeah, there's a whole lot, but yes, that is the so it is a basically a series of rooms where people play games and everything around that.
Yeah, we basically take over the main floor
Hmm,
of the Sheraton at the Falls in Niagara Falls, New York, and it is a good time. It's just
hmm,
10 days of gaming with people who you would most likely want to game with. And
yes.
the thing that I like about it the most, and Kat may also have some thoughts now that she's in her second year. I think I've been going for, I don't know, maybe 10 years now, maybe even more. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know anymore. COVID was a weird year, so
Hmm,
year and a bit, year and a couple
hmm,
bits, a lot of time. COVID. Um, is that you can spend time because it is a 10-day thing that you can have a meal with people, you can play games with people, you can go on outings with people, you can go bird watching, and
hmm,
you can go to Rochester, New York, to the Strong Museum of Play, to Millennium Games, and you just get to know people on a really on a different level, where you build memories with each other. And I think that's what I like the most about it. I
hmm,
do have to say that there are other people in the industry who don't love the gathering because it seems very exclusive. And I'm not here to say that it's not, because it is invite only. But it is like when you say it's not a con, I think that's a great way to put it, because it is not really open to every convention goer that could possibly go. So we're not going to really talk about like the ins and outs of the gathering, because I don't think that's what's going to benefit people who are listening, because they may never get invited, and that's not to say that they're not good people. It's just a thing, right? So,
hmm.
um, Kat, what are your impressions about what you've learned maybe from the gathering that you could apply to other conventions? I think that may be a good way of thinking about it.
I think one of the things that I appreciated the most about the gathering and the way that it's constructed is that one, you've got more time, as you mentioned, than you would normally have, but two, everyone there is vetted already. So for the first time, I felt comfortable just going, okay, I can just leave my bag here while I go to the bathroom, while I go out to dinner or whatever. I don't have to lug everything with me everywhere. Um, and that's very different from something I'll be able to use at any other convention. So what I did concentrate on instead is, because I have so much time, I decided I was going to practice learning and therefore getting better at teaching games.
That's a
So that
great
was
way.
my
Yeah,
aim for this year's gathering, is just to learn as many games as I possibly could in a row. It's normally the challenge I have at conventions is, one, I don't have time to learn games. And two, when I do have time to learn games, I'm overwhelmed by the noise and the chaos and the other demands and being super tired because I'm running a booth or I'm working some other way. And so I thought, well,
yeah,
I'll practice now. And like when you're training for a sport or something like that, you train here so that you can perform here in competition with all of the other
yeah.
things happening. So I figured I'd apply that to this, and
That's cool. I like
if I
that.
can learn, gosh, it must have been about 100 games in a row, over that period, somewhere around 100 games. If I can do that, then at a convention, maybe I can learn three or four in a
That's only 10 games a
like a
day,
normal everyday. So
right?
I know,
I think another thing
and
that
that's
go ahead.
well, some of the games were much heavier.
Oh yeah,
So, one of the ones that we took on was like Molly House, and George played several really heavy games. I sat in on the teach for a couple of games as well, so that I learnt those, and then I went and learnt other games while he was playing the heavier games and all that sort of stuff. So there were several days where pretty much all I did was just learn, play, learn, play, learn, play, learn, play, learn, play. I didn't play games that I knew in
yeah,
any of that time. It was just new game, new game, new game, new game, new game, and that's a lot.
yeah. I think that's wonderful though, because sometimes when you're at a convention, um, you feel the pressure to only
Mm,
play like like really quick games, and you can almost indulge yourself. There's people who will bring like a campaign game to the gathering, and finish the whole campaign with the same people because you have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 days, depending on how long you stay. And every day they might say, okay, we're all getting together at 7 o'clock after we get home from dinner, and we're going to sit down and we're going to play one campaign um, from this game. And by the end of the week, they played 10 of them and they finished the campaign, and it's lovely. And they've built that memory that is really hard to do in real life when you don't have this like secluded special place to do it, right? So there's
there,
that.
there was in the group a couple people set up playing. I think you can play arcs as like a series of
Yeah,
three,
yeah,
like
yeah. It's a three
campaign,
games, yeah.
and someone did that over it. And the thing that really caught me out, and I really want to do this if we get there next year, is that someone set up the Lacerda game, Speakeasy,
Yeah.
and it took like two. I think I don't know, it takes like 2 hours to set up.
It's a
And like,
Lacerda game.
yeah. It's no surprise, but like so just before like from like midnight to 2 in the morning, they set it up on a table and just put a note and said like, "We're using this tomorrow. Don't mess with it." And no one was awake enough in the morning, so it sat there all day. And then they had to use the room for other purposes for the flea market.
Yeah.
So they just picked up the table, moved it to another room. Again, you could never do this at any other convention where you set up this something that takes
Yeah.
up an entire trestle table, and then they played it for however long it takes.
2
Yeah.
days.
Yeah.
Interesting. To
And I
be
really want
honest,
to catch it.
yeah.
Go ahead.
To be
Sorry.
honest, you're not even supposed to do that at the gathering, though. But they may
Okay.
have had special permission. So.
Okay.
Just so you
This
know, like,
this
they're-
one did have
Hmm.
this did have special permission. This was
Yeah.
one that Derek had set up with
yeah. So
Luke,
staff.
we're talking about an invitation only gathering, which is called the Gathering of Friends. So it's not a convention per se. It's it started off as something where Alan Moon, who designed Ticket to Ride and a lot of other games, started having a few of his friends getting together, and then they started realizing that they needed a bigger space to do it, and it moved from venue to venue, and it got bigger, and they realized that they needed some structures in place to make sure that everyone was okay with the new people who were joining, basically. So it was just someone's sort of friend group that started asking, "Can I bring a friend?" And it got bigger and bigger. And this year was the 35th anniversary of that.
Yeah.
Bring a friend situation. So it's not a convention per se. We're comparing it to actual conventions.
Yes, and we're kind of figuring out what did we learn from being at the gathering that we can apply to other situations, because the gathering is a different flow of events and a different flow of time. It's like I said, it's like a sacred space. One of the things that is very different is that there's no sales. Like there's absolutely no booths, no sales of that kind of nature. There is, like, I think we mentioned the flea market where
The
you
flea
like
market.
bring your own
Yeah.
junk and sell it. And a lot of it's not junk because these are serious gamers. They just maybe don't want to play that game anymore, don't have room for it. Like, it's like we're worth a lot of money. If somebody bought it, then I can buy more games, So that's a fun day. Did you guys spend any time at the flea market, or is like I'm not even going in because I'm going to walk out spending more than I got in?
Yeah, we had no room in our suitcase, and like I don't want the regret of seeing things like I really want that, and then because then I'd have to go find a UPS place because I get too tempted.
There's a UPS
Well,
place just down the block. Just
primarily
I'm not
we have
surprised.
coming. We've already said basically nada in terms of any more
yeah,
game
because you guys are
purchases
also moving
since
so.
November.
Yeah.
We've said nothing. So, yeah, so
Yeah.
going to the flea market and then potentially having to pay to ship it back was above and beyond. But also, but also I was one of the very late night people, so I could have stayed up until the flea market opened, but I didn't. Luke, I see what you mean about it sounding secret society-ish. It's not like that. People view it that way. So in the industry, there have been people who have said things like that. It's much more about making sure that everyone who attends is comfortable and safe with the people who are added. So I mean, there is definitely a nomination process, but this isn't a public convention, and I think that's the thing that a lot of people are struggling to deal with is that, yes, if there were an officially public convention where you had to get a special invitation in order to be able to attend, that would be a lot. But this is just a group of people who have decided to arrange to play games together for 10 days. and they're
Yeah.
allowing other people to be invited with within a limited group of, so there are the people who've come before get a chance to book in, and then depending on how many spots are left according to the venue, then other people are allowed to be invited, and that's sort of, it's an understandable pattern, and it's also understandable that people aren't comfortable with it, but it's not a secret society.
Yeah. Um, so you are both designers and publishers and other things within the industry, right? Doing media and art and graphic design. What did you learn from your experiences, George, for your first time, and Kat last year as your first time? And we should mention that it is not like any other. It's not like a con, guys. So you got to understand.
Mm.
We know people there. They come back every year. I know that people are first timers because they have what?
A
What do they
red
have,
badge.
George? A
A
red
Oh,
red badge.
badge.
I should have it with me. Yeah, I
I
should have
think
been
it's
prepared.
behind you on your
I was
door.
just trying to tell
That's a
you.
dozen other badges, but no.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a red badge that signifies that you are brand new to the event. I think event is a better word. It's like somebody's birthday
Yeah,
party. Would you be upset that you weren't invited to somebody's birthday party that you didn't know? Not really.
Yes,
This is very similar. There's the red badge. Okay.
yes,
And
I
they
did have it.
they actually made a bunch of new badges this year
Yeah.
for staff and for 10 years and 25 years and all that kind of stuff. So it's really it's a sort of thing where there's a history to it as well, which makes it slightly different, or actually quite different than a lot of other things. We have people who make a shirt every year. We have people who make um, blankets and quilts out of those shirts every
Mm.
year. And it's a different thing. So, but what I wanted to ask about learning from the first time, um, what will you take away from this event that you will apply to a more regular conventional convention? That's weird. It's weird that it worked that way.
didn't we just do that?
No, no, I know what you mean. So one of the things that struck me is that there was always someone. If I was willing to say I want it, I'm looking for something, someone was always there to help. Like, and I assume that part of that was being a red badge, but I think it's just the general sense of community that was there. Like, I'd sit down with a game, like, I'm curious, and I would put a sign on my table, say, I'm looking for someone to teach this, or I just, as so many people did, you just walk around with the box in your hand until someone says, I'm game for that, and I know, and I can teach you how to play it too if you don't know. And there's a certain, I hate the trope of like pay it forward, but I don't have a better way to put it. Like, it's one of those things like, if someone's looking for something, you and you have the time, you should offer what you can, because someone will inevitably do that for you. And I think
Yeah.
that is a vibe that makes every event better,
Yeah. And so
regardless of
you
the.
could take that away from
Yeah,
this
that's what
event. Yeah.
For me, last year as a red badge, one of the things that I really noticed is I was never left to flounder by myself.
That's right.
So a little bit like what George mentioned, but really pronounced, because unlike George, I was actually there completely by myself. George was there with me.
Yeah.
So he already had um, sort of he had an automatic contact. He had an automatic extra person to do things with, and I was completely alone. Even though I knew a lot of people, it still felt really difficult to leave my hotel room and sort of go down there and be like. And I've noticed at other conventions, so I've attended quite a few conventions now completely on my own, and I've never before had people spot that I was new to the convention and make extra effort to be sure that I had someone to eat a meal with, to be sure that whenever I was sitting by myself, someone offered to, let me join their table. Or when I was reading, like I sat and read some rules at one point, and within the 20 minutes that I was sitting reading those rules, at least 5 people walked past saying, "Hey, I can teach that if you want." Or do you want to play that? Or we're about to start a different game if you would like to play that with us instead, and then we can play this afterwards, or all of these things. So there was never this sense of just sort of being this outsider floating around like I experienced, for example, at PAX East, all by
Yeah.
myself, just sort of alone. And so what I would apply from that is what I tried to apply this year anytime I saw anyone, whether or not they were a red badge, who looked like they might be a little lost or didn't have someone to talk to, I made an effort to ask if they wanted to join us for a game. So anytime anyone walked past and showed interest, I was like, "We have room. Do you want to join us?" And that attitude, it turned out one of my friends was having a bit of a rough night, and they'd just come down and walked around. And I just gave them a big smile because I saw them and I was like, "Yay, nice to see you." Almost everyone's gone to bed. There are only about 15 of us still up. Nice to see you down here again. And they just kept on because they were trying to go to sleep. But they came up to me later on and said, "You know what? That helped, just being recognized and being seen." And I was like, "Well, that's definitely something I can take and use, as I already do, but really consciously now,
Uh-huh.
at other conventions by themselves, at other conventions when I see people wandering by themselves or sitting by themselves or looking a bit lonely or lost, or when people stop to talk about the game I'm playing, I can invite them to join me. It's okay." So I'm going to make more of an effort to do that.
Yeah, I like that. Another thing I like about the gathering that I would take to other places or would even build into like my own convention if I was ever to run a convention is just different spaces for different types of
Mm.
games, which is a lovely thing that you can do when you basically run a whole floor of a hotel. One of my favorite things to do at the gathering is just do puzzles with other people.
Mm.
I don't necessarily mean jigsaw puzzles. I mean like escape room style games. I mean that kind of stuff. And actually, there's a really cool one that Shannon ran this year. Did you do it? The Sidekicks
No,
escape
I did
room.
not get a chance. I
No,
saw
we
it
Oh,
didn't
there.
so
actually
bad.
manage to get it. Yeah, it
So my
looked
friend
amazing. I really
Shannon,
wanted to, but
yeah, she's does like a lot of escape style puzzles and games and works in that field. And she helped Scott Nicholson with the design of the world championship ones for Red Bull and whatnot. But she in her hotel room basically set it up like an escape room for the day, and people could go through it and play it. And she got like I think like 30, 46 groups or something like that go through it. And I think that's such a wonderful use of space and the time that you have with
Mm.
having a hotel and kind of where people are, they're people who you would trust to be in your room, right?
Mhm.
Which I think is remarkable. But the idea of different spaces for different types of games I think is really really interesting. There's like a boardroom that you can sort of book and little side rooms that you can go in that are a little more quiet. We do RPGs in one of the other like more quiet rooms. So I think it's a really good use of space where everybody is pretty respectful. And there's a lot of other like events that happen around things. So not only just gaming events. So there was like a cribbage championship, a can't stop championship. There used to be like a Lupin Louie championship.
Mhm.
There's events like every year Piccolo, which is like you got to pick the lowest number, but
Oh yeah,
it has
yeah.
to be the lowest unique number. There's that.
Mm.
But I'm talking about like things like, hey, we're gonna have like a horror movie night, that kind of stuff. That's what Erica does and Sean. They like horror, and so they do that. Jay and I always go for movie night. So it's me and Jay, and it used to just be me, Jay, Zev, and JF from used to be Panda, now he's with Asmodee. We just go the four of us because we all like horror movies, and we go watch a horror movie at a theater and go eat wings because that's what you do when you're in Buffalo, right? So anyway, so all these like historical events that happen every year because you're with the same people a lot of times, it just doesn't happen the same when you're at a regular convention because like you said, Kat, you're running around, you're running your booth, you got to make sure that this is happening, that is happening, and you just don't take the time to do those things. So we're a little more able to do that there.
you
And
don't
so what I
have
take
that.
away from that, pardon me,
It's not realistic.
it's not what.
It's not realistic to try and do anything like that at
Well,
any other
the other, yeah,
convention.
because
There's
it is the FOMO of a 4 day or a 3 day convention
Mm.
is totally obliterated when you have 10 days, right? And
well,
so I actually take that into to the 3 day, 4 day events. It's like I'm gonna see people again. I don't have to do I don't have to kill myself to do absolutely everything. And I think I have a better time because of it, because I'm not worn out. because I've tried to do too much and I overextended myself. Um, the other nice thing is it kind of shows you how important it is if you're in the industry to have a linked hotel to the actual site of the event, because you can just kind of go upstairs and take a nap.
Mm.
Which, when you're doing as much as people do at conventions, I think it's really important. George, what else did you learn from, in terms of, say, like the pitching and the publishing side of things as a designer and a self publisher? Did you learn anything from the event that you'll take to other events?
Um, I think I learned to stress a little less about it. Like, it doesn't mean I'm not saying don't come in prepared. And I did put one of my games in front of a couple people, and it's just relax. Like the game, they're either the right person for the game or not, and it's you're as long as you have some sort of pitch down, like just trust the thing that you made is worth putting in front of people. And I think obviously be respectful of their time, know who they are, but yeah, no, this is not an adversarial industry, at least certainly in comparison to many other industries. Um, am I making sense?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
I
I
think
think
so.
that was
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I got good
Yeah.
feedback, and yeah, what was interesting to me is I got not contradictory, but the way you get different feedback from everyone, because they're looking for different sorts of things, and their perspective on what is successful for them is going to be different as well. When they reflect that on you, you don't have to take everything you get, but you may learn a bit more about about the product you're trying to create that you hadn't thought about before.
One
Kat,
of
what
the
about
things
you?
that I found really useful, one of the things I found really useful about the badges that they did this year is identify events during the year where we're all just publishers together in a lot of cases, and we can just not, we don't have to perform in the way that we do everywhere else as publishers, and we were all just able to grieve together for what's happening with the industry with the tariffs and
Oh, that's a very good point. Yeah.
to anyone else. There's a solidarity that you don't really get anywhere because you don't have time for any of that at any other event. This is, I mean, just to be clear, there are less than 500 people at this thing. This isn't a big event. This is a reasonably small group of people, and all of us have met each other generally just in the circuit prior to this, but we often haven't even had time to play a game together, let alone have a meal or have a conversation. But this was the first real time that I was able to spend focused time with any other professionals at any level, let alone people who were going through the same thing as me. And we're all very unusually going through exactly the same thing right now. Um, as publishers trying to figure out what to do with the tariffs. And that was very reassuring because I was able to sort of say, well, how are you approaching it? What are you going to do? What can I learn from your approach? What things don't I know about that I might want to consider? Which distributors can do X, Y, Z, and all of those sorts of things that you don't get unless you have access to people who have not only that deep industry knowledge, but enough time to stop and share it with you. Because there's a lot of explaining when you're pretty new and they're not. They skip over stuff and they don't realize that you don't know this or that. And so having the luxury of that many days of being able to just sit and have a slow meal or play a game that we're not really paying attention to while we're talking or any of those sorts of things, it was nice to have that as an option.
Yeah, it's definitely a luxury. But I think what I've learned from my time at the gathering is that, you can make those, you need to take the time in the industry to make real relationships with people.
Mm.
And the gathering is, like I said, it's a luxury. It is as a place where you can do those things because you have the time. But I would suggest, if you're at all in the industry in any way, shape, or form, that you spend time getting to know people in the industry who you want to work with without having to do a hard sell to
Mm.
them, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's
one thing,
definitely
yeah, one thing
not.
that I learned early
What
on was,
that the more relaxed atmosphere, the opportunity.
yeah. So one thing that I learned early on was the idea of I'm not selling a product, I'm selling myself. And I don't really think about it as selling myself, but I just want to present myself as a decent human being to everybody.
Mm.
And I think we lose track of that when we're just so focused on a product, um, when we're pitching in a regular convention scene, right? So, my suggestion to everybody is to take that time to build those relationships, work with people, and that way you'll know more about them. You'll be able to communicate with them better and freer. It won't always be, oh, this is my only shot to talk to this person,
Mm.
because if you build a genuine relationship with them, you'll have lots of opportunities. Even
Mm.
if you blow one of them, that's okay. Like, because the pitch wasn't good or the product
Mm.
wasn't something they wanted, right?
Mm.
I think the main thing that I've got in terms of pitching is I've not been someone who's focused on pitching, just to be clear. But one of the things that I picked up from interactions like the ones that I had at the gathering and that I've been lucky enough to have at other conventions is you're forming a relationship with the publisher. You're not pitching that game. Like you are
Exactly.
pitching that game, but that's not just why you're there. The game is incidental. The game is a tool. The game is part of the process. But the most important thing you're doing is you're explaining to this publisher who you are and how you and that publisher could interact.
Yep.
What the value of the relationship to both of you is, who brings what to it, in the same way as you can with distributors and so forth as well at places like Gamma Expo as a publisher. Um, and so there are a bunch of different, really important, I think, things to think about that you can pick up from a situation which is somewhat more social than you normally have the opportunity to have at a standard convention. This is much more like we all went out for dinner together and it just lasted for several days. It's much more along those lines, and you just sort of I would equate it closer to like a wedding or something like that. We're all there for a reason, but we're all sort of circulating around and getting to know each other and those sorts. So it's much more of a
Yeah.
social event in a
Yeah.
lot of
Maybe more
ways.
like
But rather
like
than
a
it being about
destination
people
wedding.
getting, it's about gap.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
So,
Yes, we're all locked into the same.
yeah, space.
Mm.
So, anybody out there in Meeple Syrup Land, if you have questions for us about conventions and pitching and preparing for conventions and self publishing and all that kind of stuff, please feel free to ask. If you have questions about the gathering, I mean that's okay. That's legit too. Um, but I again, like I said, I'm really good on what we learned from gathering we can take out to other conventions and other events. So, George, you talked about learning games and helping people learn games and teaching games, and people
Mm.
taught you games and things like that. When you're at a convention, um, you've worked at other people's booths, right? You worked at Jason Anarchy's booth
Mm.
and things like that. Did
Yes.
that help you gain confidence in your ability to run a booth
Yes, I mean,
or
I certainly
demo
would
or
say it
any of
did.
those things?
Yes, of course. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the other thing that you can learn, that you can pick up, right? Is if you get a chance to teach other people games in a
Mm.
chill, relaxed environment, it's like the next step is, and they're the people you don't even know. Like these are new people to you.
Mm.
George only knew Cat, really, and maybe one or two other
Yeah.
people at the event,
Yeah.
right? Like who else was there
Yeah, I could count them on
that
one
you knew?
hand, really, the people I
Some of
knew
the
well.
Oh, he
yeah,
knew.
exactly. Some of the people from
He,
Yeah.
I'd say that he knew probably about 30 or 40 of the people who were there, but well enough to be comfortable talking to them, maybe three or four,
Yes, that's fair.
yeah,
maybe
yeah. That's
five.
more what I meant, right?
There were a few
Yeah.
people that were, yeah. So, Whereas I think my first gathering, I was kind of amazed that I knew well enough to talk to at least about half the people who were there. Um, so that was kind of neat, but really well, very, very few. So I think we had a different experience in that sense. But yes, absolutely, you can learn things from being able to practice teaching in various different situations. That does improve that transferable skills. I think the gathering for me wasn't just about learning things; it was about just actually because that feels like it's a task. I didn't go there to achieve tasks, and I think
Sure.
that's what was particularly interesting about it. I didn't go for a task; I went because I didn't have to, and not having to was one of the things I enjoyed the most. I was just able to just go, yep, sure, whatever. Anytime anyone, I had nothing on my list. I had nothing planned. Oh, I had one dinner, but that was it. No plans, no bookings, no appointments, no nothing. I just basically was like, anytime anyone suggests anything to me that I don't actively not want to do, I'm going to do it. So
Right. So you
that was
say yes more.
Mm.
really it was well. I had the opportunity to, which was very unusual because normally I have to think, oh, I've got to set up the booth, or oh, do I have enough spoons left for that, or that could cost too much because I'll have to no, don't have to worry about any of it because there was always someone who was able to drive us to something if we were going out for dinner, so we didn't have to worry about paying for an Uber. Um, all of this other stuff that really changes. Like I would never get into some stranger's car at a normal convention. I would never do that. But because these were all people who had been vetted by other people that I knew, I was like, okay, I'll get in your
Hmm.
car.
Cool. It's a little creepy, but yeah. Hey, Luke asked a question. He says the thing that he liked about Terminal City Tabletop Convention in Vancouver was the Proto Alley was prominent and felt showcased. So there is definitely prototypes being played at the gathering, pitching happening at the gathering. There are, because now we're a little more connected. This year and last year was the first year we had a Discord for the event, and so people are scheduling things a little bit more in advance. Like Matt Leacock and Ellie Dix had a big kind of pandemic, almost like a mega game, and so they announced that ahead of time. Gil Hova was playing just RPGs, just not ones that he made, but like he would set up that on Discord like days in advance so that people would be know that they have a 3 hour block of time they have to send that to like block off at this day at this time. So yeah, there is no real prototype alley except for one thing. Except for one thing, and that is the game that is the convention game. So
Ah,
it doesn't always happen. It used to happen every year, and then it kind of slid back for a little while, and now it's kind of back in full force. And there's even like a whole contest now. And there used to be a contest as well, but it's just design a game around a theme. And I can't remember what this year's theme was, but I know you had to use a piece from a game that
This
Alan
year,
designed. But other than that, I don't know much because I wasn't there. Uh, and so a lot of times those games are tested throughout the week so that people can like vote on them and all that kind of stuff. So
this year it was either The Gathering or Niagara Falls, and I
that's
didn't get
right.
a chance to play the game, but it was beautiful. Like, you could see the love that had been put in. It was set up on the like one of the tables by the games, and
Yeah.
really quite a piece.
Oh, and
um,
that's the other thing. Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Kat. I'll talk about the other thing later.
I was just going to say, until people see something like this, they try and picture it like it's a convention. And again, it's not a convention. It is several rooms full of tables and chairs. That's it. It's just tables and chairs. There are no booths. There's no proto alley. There's no art alley. There's nothing for sale. There is no set anything. All that happens is in the main ballroom space, there are games arranged on shelves all around the walls with a label on them. So alphabetically, so you know that you got it from O, and people, for example, or P or Z or whatever, and people bring games to share and they put their details in them and which area they came from so you can return them back where you borrowed them from. So
That
it's a
is a
big
new thing.
it's this is a reasonably well they've got better at it, but this
Oh
is
yeah.
this is basically a crowdsourced game library,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it's just a
Yeah.
big space. There are no panels. There's nothing like
Mm.
so. It's
No,
just it's just a big space or a series of big spaces where people hang out
yeah.
and play games. And
And one of the
yeah,
heroes of the convention or the event, sorry, is Rodney.
Yes.
Rodney Summerstein brings like I don't know how many games,
yes,
like hundreds of games in a
Mm.
U-Haul.
Mm.
He brings all his shelves, and we open the games and we punch them and leave them there, and then he gets an immense amount of satisfaction from having people play the games that he's curated, right? So it's a really neat space where somebody is willing to give of
Mm.
their personal library for other people to enjoy. So that's pretty cool. I did want to talk about we're talking about the game. Oh, another thing you'll see is there's a lot of people who are so hardcore about gaming that they'll do like homebrews and print and plays and things of games that they love, absolutely love. And so Leslie, who's a Canadian,
yes.
uh, and his wife, they go down, and he brings like the most ridiculous like set games. So one year he made me this Legend of Korra. Have you ever seen the cartoon for Legend of Korra? They play this game called um, Pro Banding Arena, and it's on this elevated arena that falls into the water, and then in the elevated arena, there's another piece that elevates up. And so he made me a three-dimensional board for my game because Alara and I made like we designed the game for it, and it was amazing. He goes, "Look at this." He put a figure on the center space, and then he pushed a syringe, and the thing elevated in space. It was awesome. It was amazing. And he brought, I think last year he brought like a. It was basically just like I think it was either Hippomachus or uh, um, Chariot Racing, one of the Ben Hur type games. But he had built the entire Coliseum that's like 5 foot by 3 foot, and he brought it in his car, and it's like made out of like balsa wood and foam, and you play this game inside this beautiful like set. He's a graphic designer who worked a lot on like window displays and things like that, so he's very
Okay.
skilled in that area. But
Mm.
these are the types of things that you just wouldn't necessarily see at a local sized event, because he wants to share this with like people he likes, and people he wants to spend time with. But you will see like huge games and stuff. There's always some neat games that are being played at like Origins or Gen Con where they're just giant versions of things. Those are kind of cool too.
He this
Cassie
year
asked a
he
question.
brought a an adaptation of Labyrinth,
Right.
where he had taken the game Labyrinth and he had reskinned it with the movie Labyrinth and had done this to scale sculpture of Jareth with the glass and everything. And I was like, oh wow. But yes, Cassie's question. I saw Cassie's question.
Mm.
Yes, one of the cool things is this is one of the only player I've been able to bring out my prototypes and just casually say, look, I'm stuck on this. Can I play this with you? Rather than it being a formal unpub playing situation where you're stuck sort of having to really test it and have randoms come up and you have to be ready. Your game has to be at a place where you can have randoms come and play it. This can be a broken game or a game at an earlier stage or all of those sorts of things. So I was able to get several of my prototypes unstuck. Um, I was also, because I just haven't been looking at them with BubbleNet being the main thing we've been focusing on, I was also able to, because I insisted on playing so many brand new games all the time, I was also able to play games that I wouldn't normally have accessed that gave me some ideas for example, Plucker that we've been working on and off as one of our prototypes. I played a couple of things that made me think, oh, I could implement some aspects of that for those. I finally, I think, understood trick takers after learning a million more. Um,
Did you play with
those
Fel at all?
sorts of
Fel Barros
things.
from
So
Brazil.
Oh, yes.
yes, none of them
He
were
loves
trick
trick
takers
takers.
though,
Yeah.
Oh, hilarious!
which
That's
is
funny.
funny.
Yeah. Curve cut. Luke
Um,
asks. Oh, I think you might have talked about this already. But Luke asks about game design workshop with panels, group critiques. So you already said there's not things like that at this event. But Luke, my advice to you is get out there and do those things at other events, whether they're game specific or it might be just like at a library. Like local libraries love that kind of stuff. Maybe a local school or a college would also be into that. Um, I'm not sure where you're located, but that, if you tell me where you're
If you're not
located,
to
I might be able to
organize them
link you up with
yourself,
people.
you're wanting to experience them. Sorry, Sen, you froze
Oh,
again, and I
Kat, I
thought you'd
think.
finished talking.
Um,
Um,
what were you saying, Kat?
um, what I was saying is, I was saying that if I think Luke might be saying that he doesn't actually want to organize these things, he wants to attend them.
Sure.
And there are a variety of different ways that that's already in place now. Like a lot of people run game retreats, but also this basically sounds like a description of Unpub Prime
Yeah.
in terms of it being all about game design, having a bunch of panels, including ones that are about, you show me your game, and a panel of people will talk about the game. There's a whole lot of stuff like that
Yeah.
happens. And also Gamma Expo is starting to ramp up their creative area where they're aiming to add more of this stuff. I wouldn't jump straight into it right now. I think they've still got some polishing to do, especially if it's going to be very expensive for you to attend. But that would be something I'd keep an eye on. But Unpub is doing it now. So if you were going to go to one convention in the US next year, it's somewhere around about March, and it's Unpub Prime. It's in Baltimore, so that would be a good one to try and attend if you can.
Gen Con has actually, they have a new track that Kathleen Mercury is part of heading up. She's also part of heading up the one that's a GAM, I believe, with Dave Abelson and Matt. Fantastic. But the one at the gathering, not the gathering, sorry, at Gen Con is interesting. And I've been asked to teach in it because it's actually for credit if you want it to be. Like you can get a university credit for it. I won't be teaching this year just because that's life, or unless they want me to zoom in or something. But the concept is you're using Gen Con as your lab. So when you go and play test it, you're going to play test it with people that are at Gen Con. When you go and pitch it to or make a one sheet, a sell sheet for it, you're going to go show it to publishers on the floor and get some critique from it, right? So I think it's a really neat idea of using that 4 days of gaming, the best 4 days of gaming, as a laboratory, as a space in which to learn. So that's kind of cool. That's something that's really coming up. Um, you will find that you know more local things can have those if there are people who are interested in giving the talks and giving the panels about that kind of stuff. So they're usually going to be very 101-ish though, where you might already know more than the person themselves or as much as them, or could offer some help there too, like if you want to do some talking. I think that's really important too, is that people get out there and talk about what they know. Oh, speaking of which, and speaking of Unpub, and speaking of all that kind of stuff, um, hopefully, some of you have signed up for the mentorship program. Whether you are a mentee, somebody who's going to receive mentorship, but more importantly, if you can mentor anybody in anything that is related to the industry in some way, shape, or form, all you have to do is be more experienced than the person that you're mentoring. And that would be totally fine. So I see some names on here like Sasha and Cassie and Luke yourself, right? If you have experience that other people could benefit from, please do consider contacting Unpub and seeing if they need more mentors. The deadline was last week, but I know that yesterday or the day before, Tuesday or Ben or somebody sent out a message saying, hey, we're still a little bit shy of the number of mentees that they need covered. And if you can take more than one mentee, more power to you. That'd be wonderful. I take 2 a year or 2 a session. And so it's something in which you can give back to the community if you've got something from it. I know, George, the paying it forward thing, I get it. But still, you should pay it forward. So there's that as well, Luke, that you can join in on those types of things. And I find actually, as somebody with quite a bit of experience in the field, that even with the amount of knowledge that I have, I learn a lot from working with mentees all the time. I learn something from them. I learn something while helping them. So it is mutually beneficial. It's not a one way street where I'm like downloading my brain into theirs, because it's not like that, right? It's more like guidance and helping them make better connections, or being a sounding board to bounce ideas off of. And a lot of times it just makes you think about your own process and your own thoughts. So there you go. Join in on that.
I just had a thought, sort of back referencing to Cassie's question, um, and just to call it to. There's a lot of people who were very helpful to me over the week, but I had a game that was like 3 weeks old, and I just threw it in front of some people. And Chris Chan from earlier this season was one
Yeah.
of the people who played it, and afterwards, the core mechanism is sort of a card shedding thing, from like a classic sort of game where you're making sets and runs in your hand and dumping them. And we got into this conversation for must have been several hours about card shedding versus rummy style games. And because I'd mostly played rummy, he taught me gin rummy, and we played several hands of that. And then someone else showed up and showed us this Indian game called Seep, and we played that until basically dawn. And that was a
That's awesome.
fascinating sort of thing. And
See,
Seep,
yeah.
yes, Seep, and
Yes.
and I'll call it Chris again. Just before, I think he had to leave very early in the morning, but he was about to go, and I asked him like he mentioned he could teach us mahjong, and I
Oh
grabbed
yeah,
him
yeah, yeah.
before he
Because
was
he was
leaving.
supposed to do that. Yeah.
Yes, and I think and he basically spent another 4 hours teaching, which was amazing, and what a fascinating game.
Yeah. And like
The variant we learned at least, and I also
3 a.m.
learned
was,
so much. Yeah, it was something crazy.
yeah.
But I had
Which variant did you learn?
it was Hong Kong, wasn't it? He said that was
Hong
going to be
Kong.
the most approachable
Hong
one.
Kong.
Yeah,
It's the simplest
yeah.
ish.
He
Hong
called
Kong.
out a few others that would be
Yeah.
interesting, but yeah, that's where we started. But I
Yeah.
had the opportunity later on, as far as things that thought made me think about adjustments to games. Someone else had a game that they were working on. I won't go into the details of it, but it's a sort of a strategy card game sort of thing. And I sat down with them, and I think between playing and feedback, probably spent like 5 hours working through their game, and hopefully they walked away with something beneficial from. But it also made me think a lot about how to compartmentalize complexity on so that it's accessible and that you only need to digest what you need at any given point, um, to make the overall understandability
It
of
was
a
it was
funny.
way more than 5 hours.
Okay, I don't know. I
You
lost.
you
Well, it's a
had a
good
one
sign,
o'clock
right?
appointment.
Keep track.
No, no, I know, I know. What I'm saying is this is one of the things you can only do at the gathering. You had an appointment to play at 1, I believe, and I
It's
had to
two
I had to
thirty.
interrupt you so that we could
Supposed to
go
be
for
bed
dinner,
at 7.
whatever
Yeah,
it
or
was.
something like
I had
that.
to interrupt you because we got sick of waiting for you because we wanted to go for dinner. And then you got back from dinner and disappeared back into it until it was bedtime, basically. Like you spent an entire and that I'm not criticizing that. I'm saying that is something that you simply cannot do at anything else. You can simply go, you know what? This is what I'm doing today. I'm going to help this person with their game. And that
But
I
I think
think
I.
is the thing that I've never experienced anything else.
But my point is, I think I got a lot
Go
out
on.
of it too. Is the thing. It
Yes.
made it made me think a lot about my games as well. Um, the published games that I played that made me think a lot about my games were basically the whirligig stuff. So between playing
Molly House. Yeah.
Molly House and Pax Pamir, it really made me think about how much complexity in gameplay you can fit into a because those games aren't they're not they don't take up a whole table. The rules are actually not terribly complex, but it's one of the few. Both of those were games I finished them immediately. Like I really want to play this again because I can see everything I did wrong, and I know when I play it again, I can see so many other things I did wrong. It was really quite fascinating, and the use of the players to create there's always the the enemy or the opposition in the game, but having the opposition's direction emerge very tightly from what the players do, and so they're not in control of it, but it tracks them very well, and they're sort of an agent in it. I don't know. It made me think a lot.
Yeah,
I'm fanboying a bit, but I was really impressed, having not played those games before, with
And we learned
how they're
John
put together.
Company as well. We didn't get. We
Yes,
sat.
we
We
have to
were
try.
invited to sit in on the teach for John Company, which was amazing. Which took, and this is by a very good teacher. So there was no mucking around, and it took about an hour to teach that
yeah.
game. So yeah, I mean, it's not a simple game. And,
I
yeah.
like those games because the meat and the bones are separate. If you get my meaning,
Yeah, that's a good
Mm.
way to put it.
right?
Yes.
Like there's the bones of the game. You can learn the bones of the game, but to really interact with it, you have to digest the meat. And I like that about those
Mm.
games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can only stomach so much of it for so long.
Mm.
Going on a food analogy here, I need to palate cleanse with like, is this a hat or this is not a hat or
Yeah.
something like that every now and then.
Yeah.
But I do really appreciate those games, and um, Cole and Drew are great designers, and everybody in that circle is wonderful. So
Mm.
there you go. Cool, cool, cool. We're about out of time, but if there's any other questions from the audience, feel free and shoot them in there. We'll talk a little bit about what's happening in the future. So, Kat and George, we know that things are changing with you guys, right? And I don't think it's a big surprise to a lot of the audience that
Yes.
you guys are heading to Europe, right? And not just for a weekend, not just for a week. This
Yes.
is like for a decent amount of time,
Mm.
being maybe 3 and a bit years or something, right? And that does not coincide with anything. Coincides perfectly with some other things.
It's
But the
probably
point is, yeah,
no.
yeah, that we're going to have to look at, how does Meeple Syrup run? If Kat and George are still going to be part of it, if maybe they're going to be our European correspondents. That'd be fun. But also
George will
thinking
still be
about the
around.
next couple of weeks. Yeah.
Mhm.
So George, how much longer are you going to be stateside? Do you think?
Uh, the ballpark estimate, probably August, maybe September at the longest.
Okay.
I think.
Cool.
Again, it depends on the logistics of what it takes to sell a house and move
Right.
over halfway around the world.
Yeah. So George and I will probably be doing this until September, and then in September, that's a good time to that's a good strategic point in the year, anyways, to kind of think about what's the next thing we're going to move on to, and how are Kat and George going to still be involved, if at all, if they can still manage that, and we'd love to have them still part of the family. So that's something. You're getting a
So I'll be
free,
leaving
Yeah.
more than that.
yeah. Welcome to Europe. It's going to be a very late night show if you're keeping the same
So
time.
Yes.
That may not be the best way to use Kat's time. We'll have to figure that one out. Although
I'm
Kat, I will say that I saw you up late at night a lot in the pictures from the gathering. So
It helps when you don't have to get up in the morning.
That's
Oh,
what's so
yes,
unusual
right.
about the gathering.
right, there we go.
No, I normally can't stay up late. So
That's right.
I wasn't actually staying up as late as it seemed because I'm West Coast time. So 7 a.m. East Coast is only 4 a.m. West Coast.
Yeah,
That's still very
that's totally
late.
not.
But it's just deeply unusual for me being able to do that. But no, I will actually be moving to the Czech Republic much sooner than George is. I'll be getting over there. The reason that there's the gap is because I'll be trying to get a visa, and the New Zealand passport gives you more space to move around and stay in different parts of the Schengen group than the American passport does at present. So I'll go ahead. I'll try and get a job. I will be hopefully working UKGE and Essen, and I'm hoping that George will be over with me as soon
By
as
Essen, yeah.
possible. But that
Yeah.
will rely on how long it takes for the visa to happen, because I'll need to import him once I have a visa, so he won't be able to come over really until my visa is done, just in case that interferes with the visa process. So
Yeah, that makes sense too. It's a messy business, eh?
yeah, I don't want to do that.
Hey.
Yeah.
All right. So, everybody out there, thank you very much for being patient with our weird laggy stream today. If you want to chat with me, you can find me on the sky, where the sky is blue at Senfeng Lim. Kat and George, you guys are
Driving
Sharing
on all
all
the
the things.
things, most likely to find
Wait a
us
minute.
on Blue Sky, though.
yeah,
Yep,
Yes.
yeah.
with
And you can find
yeah.
us still on Meeple Syrup on all the things. Um, Alex will be maybe at UKGE. I was actually thinking about UKGE as well because it's
Yes,
like the end of
I will
May,
definitely be there.
but I haven't put any like brain power into like booking a ticket or anything like that. So it's not looking very likely at this moment. So anyway, thanks, Luke. You have a great week too. If you want to keep the lights on here, help us, patreon.com/Meeple Syrup. And we don't know what we're doing next week, but we're going to be here. So that'll be fun. Final advice. Um, my final advice to you guys is, take time within the scope of a smaller, shorter, 3 or 4 day or even a 2 day event to really enjoy gaming, not just to enjoy selling and buying. Like, enjoy the gaming part of it. I think it's important that you enjoy games, and not just the business side of it, even if you are in the business. That's my piece of final advice. Kat, what's your piece of final advice today?
Um, Lean into learning.
Cool.
Give yourself the opportunity to absorb what's around you. Everyone wants to tell you stuff. Everyone wants to share things with you. Make space for it.
And George, what is your piece of final advice?
I think I'd sort of pick a bit of both and say, all we really have is each other. So try to make time for each other if you can, and understand that other people do want to help you. So be open to that as well.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Well, thank you everybody for watching. Thank you, Kat. Thank you, George. We'll see you guys next week. Same time, same place. Bye.
Bye.